participants here, all of which are cool except one. Thank you, whoever started the recording. I was just about to do that. Okay, Raquel just sent me a quick message. So let me look at that real quick. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And thank you for coming and listening to this recorded session. What we want to talk about today is final exams. They're coming up probably in less than a month, maybe about 3 weeks from now. So now's the time to start thinking about maybe how you want to handle final exams. And so let me see if I can get back to my sharing slides here. Okay, oh good. Hi. I'm going to just call you Dr. Z, okay, if that's okay, because I don't know how to pray. Hey, Dr. Z. Okay. So we wanted to start off by just going over a few of the CSU final exam guidelines. And these are the guidelines that came down from the provost's office to help faculty as they are planning their final exams. So final exam week is now in the week of May 14th, May 11th through May 14th, which if I'm looking at my trusty calendar right here, which is 1, 2, 3, about 3 weeks, maybe a little shy of 3 weeks from now, we're going to start final exams. And so this is for all the courses that transformed from face-to-face to online. So in these courses, instructors are going to end their regular sessions and their synchronous activities. And when we say synchronous activities here, is a lot of faculty are holding virtual office hours or maybe even lectures during the week. So all that's going to end on May 9th. So after May 9th, there's no more coursework being done in the course. We're going to focus solely on final exams. And so I want to draw your attention right here to this wording. After May 9th, you're to conduct final exams or appropriate culminating activities during exam week. Okay, so what does that mean? What kind of final exam do you need to give? Well, that gives you a lot of leeway and a lot of choices in what kind of final exam you want to give. Maybe you already know what you want to do for final exams, but what this is doing is kind of opening the door and allowing you to think creatively about how you might want that student to show you that they've mastered material for this semester. There's some other just kind of housekeeping type of direction here. Whatever you're having the student do, if it's an exam like a quiz or some kind of exam in Cougar View, should not be more than 150 minutes. I don't think that holds true for if you're having the student do a project. So you maybe can allow the project to happen over several days and then the project just be submitted or uploaded to Cougar View. We also have some verbiage here about courses that were already in progress as an online course. The guidelines here from the provost office is that courses should proceed with exams as planned. They should not require any kind of synchronous exams or activities. And what they mean by synchronous exams is don't go into a Zoom session and in real time expect the student to or give the student any kind of exam in real time. It should be asynchronous or at different times. I just added this right here. This was not part of the guidelines, but I thought it might be important to know that grades are due on May 18th at 12 p.m. And so this is important for you to know, because if your final exam ends on the 14th of May, which is a Thursday, okay, and say you have 60 students, and you've required each of them to submit a final research paper as their final exam, and so now you have 60 research papers to read. Just know that you only have until that following Monday at 12 p.m. to get them read and grades posted. Okay, so you may want to just, keep those dates in mind so you don't go over and don't get done what you need to get done before grades are due. Okay. The verbiage on the final exam guidelines talk about students with disabilities and that they can be accommodated through some settings that we have in Cougar View. I'm going to show you what those are in just a moment and show you how to set them. But even if you are not sure about how to set those, or if you need more instruction on how to do that, please reach out to us at COOL. We're more than happy to help you make those settings for accommodations for your students, whether it be extra time or additional days, or whatever their accommodations help you set up your exam to where we make sure that those students are accommodated. And the very last thing that is mentioned in the guidelines is that any kind of exception to the guidelines here set forth here should be approved by the academic dean. Okay, so these guidelines are very broad, but they also, with that, allow us to have a lot of creativity in what we can do to present a final exam. So, with that being said, are there any questions? I guess not. Did our one participant leave? No, he's back. Hi, Dr. Z. Do you have any questions so far about final exams? Good. Okay, so I will move on here. The final exam guidelines talk about Respondus Monitor. I know that there are people who in the past have wanted to do things like proctoring of final exams. If you could, as you can see here, the final exam guidelines say that these final exams should proceed without proctoring or proctoring services, except for Respondus Monitor. And in just a minute, our proctoring coordinator, Raquel, is going to talk to you about Respondus Monitor and Respondus Lockdown if that is something that you choose to use as part of your final exam. Just know that this tool, Respondus Monitor, is built into Cougar View. It's integrated there, and it can increase the security of exams. There are some drawbacks to using Respondus Monitor, and so one of the purposes of this whole session today is to show you how you can make your test secure using only Cougar View. And give you more information about using Respondus Monitor and Respondus Lockdown should you want to use that. So let's go straight to the test security and how you possibly can make your test secure just using Cougar View. And if you bear with me for 1 second, I would like to share my screen here. Give me 1 second. And share screen. Application window, this one. So I hope what you see is something called Kimpact Sandbox. Okay. I'll turn it to the page with the flowers and the tulips. Okay. So hopefully you can see that and everything is good. If at any time, something pops up and you're not able to see what I'm talking about, please feel free to type something in the chat box and I will be happy to try to adjust. Using the share screen application in Collaborate can be tricky sometimes. Okay, so to make your test secure in Cougar View, of course, we're going to go to assessments and then go to quizzes. Remember, all quizzes, exams, and tests in Cougar View are built using the quizzing tool. So here I am in my quizzes, and I have a final exam down here. that I want to make secure. And so if I click the drop down arrow and I click edit, this is going to bring up first the properties tab on my quiz. And so there's a couple of things I can do here. I see that here my quiz has 15 questions. And so that's important to know. I'll tell you why in just a minute. But one of the things you can do is you can set the quiz to only show one question per page. And to do that, under quiz questions, you can just put the number 1 here and then click apply. And that sets this purple line right here, then separates out each question. So while the student is taking the test, they're only seeing one question. Another thing you can do is prevent the pages from moving backwards. In other words, once the student gets the question, they're able to answer the question, and then they need to move forward. They can't go back. And so doing this just makes the test more secure, because the student then needs to have the question in front of them, and either they know the answer or they don't. They don't have the opportunity to go back and figure out by maybe other questions what maybe the answer to the question in front of them is. Or they maybe don't have the opportunity to say, hey, wait a minute, I don't think I answered that other question right, so let me go back and change that one. Another thing that you can do that helps is shuffle the questions at the quiz level. This is important because since you are not in the room with the student while they are taking the test, the likelihood that they would get together or call each other on the phone and say, well, what's the answer to number 1, or what is question 5, what's that answer? What this does is it shuffles the question, so one person's question number 1 is not another person's question number 1. And so on the properties tab, those are the settings that we recommend that you set to help make the test secure. Under the restrictions tab here, if we click on the restrictions tab, this is where you would set the start and end date for your exam. Since these are the dates for the final exam week, starting on May 11th, we suggest that opens up at 12 a.m. So it opens the beginning of May 11th, and then the exam does not close until 11:59 p.m. on May 14th. So that is what we call a testing window. So between May 11th and May 14th, the student has any time in that window to go in and take your test. It's important that when you are announcing your final exam, that you let students know what the time window is and the amount of time students will have to answer the test. Because once the student goes in and accesses the test and opens the test during this window, then they'll need to be able to make arrangements to sit down and be prepared to take that test, usually because it's timed. And if they exceed that time, a lot of times they won't be able to finish the test. And so these types of housekeeping issues or rules that are set out, mechanics of the test, we suggest that you just put all of this in an announcement so students are aware before testing happens exactly what's going to happen while they are trying to take their test. So those are the dates, the availability dates, and you can also click to make it have this display in the calendar. It's probably not a good idea to give a password for the test. Just go ahead and leave the test open for everyone. But it is recommended that you set certain time for your test. Depending on how many test questions you have, this particular quiz, I only had 15 questions. And so a good rule of thumb is that you allow for a minute to a minute and a half per question. And so for this 15-question quiz here, I have a time limit of 10 minutes with a grace period of 15. So that allows about a minute per question. you are the subject matter expert in your area. You know how long it should take students to, when they look at a question, how long it should take them to answer that question. And so you can make that decision on your own. But like I said, a general rule is about a minute to a minute and a half per question. Once you set the timing there, you have some late behavior options here. If the student exceeds the time, they can continue to work the exam, and it will show you in red marking how many minutes they went over, or even hours that they went over or they exceeded their time. The next option here is to, once the student exceeds the time and the grace period, they're prevented from making further changes. And then the last option here is to allow the student to continue working but automatically score the attempt to 0 after an extended deadline. So you could give them even more than the grace period here and add some minutes to this. But if they exceed all of this, then they would automatically be scored 0. Now, I mentioned before that you may have students in your class who have special accommodations. Maybe they need extra time, or maybe even an extended date. That is what is considered special access. Just know when you create this quiz and you open it up, it's opened up to all students. So you don't need to give every student access. However, if there are students who need special access, you do this here. So to get special access, you just click this gray button right here. You leave it on this first radio button, allow selected users special access to the quiz. Click this gray button right here, and what that's going to do is it's going to pull up a list of your students. Okay, and so you select the student that you want to add special access, and then you click add special access, and then it kind of goes back to the same settings as you were just in, which looks a little bit confusing until you scroll all the way down under special access and you realize that now you have your student listed here. So to change their access, click on this pencil right here, and that'll open up the date. So if they need an additional date, you can change that. If you want to give them extra time, you could give that here. You can also change the late behavior and the grace period, and then click add special access. And so when you do that, it goes right back to that restrictions tab. But if I scroll all the way down, now I see that my student now has a different date and they have a different time. Okay. Okay, so I believe that is what I wanted to say about test security. Raquel, would you like to talk to them about Respondus lockdown? If you notice here under the restrictions tab, if you were using Respondus, isn't it there somewhere?
Yes, it should be there. If you've got Respondus already set up for the exam, you should see it in the restrictions. You'll see an additional option.
Oh, okay, right here. If you've already got it set up. Okay, so if I had it set up for response, would you like, I'm going to put sharing, and that way you can share. And hold on one second. Let me stop sharing my screen, and I will let you talk about Respondus if you like.
Okay, thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, okay, thank you so much. Okay, I'll go ahead and start sharing here. And Kim, do we have time to show a little 5-minute video, or?
Yeah, sure, whatever you want to do.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go ahead and go to my, let's see, my Cougar View. See if I can pull this up here. Oh, no, that's not it. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. Okay. Can you guys see my sandbox okay?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm just going to show you a quick way to find some guides on Respondus Monitor, but this is my sandbox. So if you go to assessments and then you go to quizzes, you see right here it says Lockdown Browser. If you click right there, and it'll ask you if you would like to proceed, just go ahead and hit continue. It brings you to this screen here. Before you go into continue on to Lockdown Browser, you have the opportunity to watch a few videos, and I'll go ahead and play one now that helps with setting up exams with Lockdown Browser. But if you go to video tutorials, there's also a tutorial here for students for the student overview that you can put in your course. These are YouTube links that Respondus Lockdown Browser and Respondus Monitor, or that Respondus has created. So you should be able to put them in your course for students to see. But the one I wanted to show is the one called Preparing a Quiz for Use with Lockdown Browser and Monitor. But before I started, I just want to let you know that there are a few drawbacks to using Respondus Lockdown Browser and Respondus Monitor. First of all, there's a compatibility issue with Chromebooks, iPads, there is a link that you can, a little box that you can check that allows the use of iPads, but students still have issues using iPads. And then, of course, it doesn't work with phones or Android devices. So those are some of the drawbacks, but I'll go ahead and start this video. Hopefully you guys can hear it. If not, can you let me know if you don't hear it? Are you guys able to hear that?
No, I can't hear it.
Okay, well, that's okay. Well, that's okay. You can go back and watch the video. If you go to your Lockdown Browser and then go to the welcome page, it has all these videos there, so you can watch those. But I'll just go ahead and continue on to show you how to do it rather than showing the video. If you click here where it says continue to Lockdown Browser, and just give me a minute for it to pop up. You'll see that this is the Lockdown Browser dashboard, and you'll see that all of the quizzes that you have created are right here. If you need information about Respondus Monitor proctoring, there's also a rapid rollout guide that you can click on to give you additional videos and guides to go through. But we'll go ahead and I'm just going to start setting up Lockdown Browser and Monitor for this quiz. You go to Settings, and then here in the Lockdown Browser settings, you have the option to only use Lockdown Browser or to use it with Respondus Monitor. So if you want to require Respondus Lockdown Browser for the exam, you'll just click there. And normally when you're using Lockdown Browser by itself, it's normally because it's in a proctored setting, for example, a testing lab or a a setting where there's a proctor that can put the password in for the student. So that's why this option is here for password settings. But because we are going to be using Respondus Monitor in this case due to the COVID-19 situation, you would just add require Respondus Monitor for this exam. And then what'll pop up is information about Respondus Monitor, which is actually an add-on feature to Lockdown Browser. So they're two separate features. You can use Lockdown Browser without Respondus Monitor, but you cannot use Respondus Monitor without Lockdown Browser. So then you would just continue. And then you'll see that there's information regarding startup sequences. You can have different startup sequences before the student begins the exam. Here you can add additional instructions if you want to put some more information for the exam. There's something already pre-written, but if you want to edit the text, you can. There's also guidelines and tips for the students to go to. And that just basically, it gives them all the guidelines, what they need to do, turn off all the radios, television, avoid rooms where there's other people, etc. So, it just takes them through the guidelines, and you can preview all of this as well. All of these you can preview. There's also the option to have a photo taken of the student so that you can have their photo for ID purposes. You can also have them show their ID and do what's called a photo ID check, which is basically the same as any web-based proctoring service would do. When they onboard a student to take an exam, they will have them do a profile picture, and then they'll also have them take a photo ID and show it so that when the live proctor comes in, the proctor can verify the information with the picture and the copy of the photo ID to ensure that it's the same person taking the exam. And so this startup sequence does the same thing, only without the live proctor. There's also an environment check. What the environment check is the student has to do a pan of the room with the webcam just to show that there's nobody else in the room. And you can also add a request for them to have a mirror to show up against the webcam so that they can see around, so you can see around the monitor to make sure that there's no papers or anything that are around the monitor that the webcam maybe might not have been able to catch, things like that. So if you wanted to do that, you could put the instructions in the environment check text. And then there's also facial detection software. So if the student, let's say the student is taking the exam and then they disappear from the webcam, what will happen is they will get flagged. The video will get flagged at that point, and when it's uploaded to your dashboard, you'll be able to see where the flags are in the video, and they're labeled as low priority, medium priority, or high priority. The low priority are the ones that were not flagged very much. The high priority are the ones that maybe have a lot of flags that you might want to take a look at just to see if there was potential academic dishonesty. And then you would review the video and decide what action to take from there. There's also additional facial detection options. You can have them or not have them. It's completely up to you. And in the advanced settings, it allows for videos additionally to be available for viewing on mobile devices, and it also allows for another application to use the microphone during the exam. I'm not sure if anyone would really want to use that, but they're there just in case. So you would just choose what settings you want, and then you would save and close. And I'm sorry, just bear with me here. It might be taking a little bit just because of the time of the day. There we go. So it's saved, and as you can see now, the Lockdown Browser test quiz now has added to it requires Respondus Lockdown Browser plus webcam, which means that Lockdown Browser and Respondus Monitor have now been required for this. So that's just how you set it up. And if you have a student who does not have the compatible device to be able to take the exam using Respondus Lockdown Browser and Monitor, you can go into the exam, and now where Dr. Stokes was showing earlier where her options for Lockdown Browser are grayed out, because my exam now requires Lockdown Browser and Lockdown Monitor or Respondus Monitor, it should allow me to make some changes. I was trying to see where. So right here it has it grayed out and I can't change it because the whole exam requires it. But if you go down to special access, now here you see that there's a little box that says Lockdown Browser, not required to take this quiz. If you click on that, then that specific person that you're giving special access to will not be required to take the quiz. And what that looks like is I'll just choose someone, Jan Haney. I'll give him special access that he's not required to take the quiz. And then what that does is he'll pop up down here under special access and he'll have the little padlock will be unlocked for him, which indicates he is not required to use Respondus Lockdown Browser in order to take this exam. And then you would just save and close, and that's all I had for that. Are there any questions about that? Okay. Well, Kim, I pass it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Raquel. So one thing to note, hold on, I'm trying to get back to my PowerPoint. One thing to note is using Respondus Lockdown Monitor, a couple of things. It's not going to work on iPads. It's not going to work on Chromebooks. So if you have students who have those are trying to take your quiz on those items, then you may get some kind of message from them that says, I'm trying to take this and it's not working. And usually that may be the case. So you'll probably have to go in, and you can certainly call us and we will walk you through this, add special access for that person, and enable the little checkbox there which says I don't know what the wording was, they don't have to use Respondus Lockdown in order to take the quiz, okay? Also, there was something else. If your student maybe doesn't have a webcam and you want them to use Monitor, then you're going to have to add that special access. Yeah, that was fine. We saw that, Raquel, where you were able to add special access and deselect, I guess, using Respondus. So. But just know that that might get you some questions if you set up Respondus Monitor and Respondus Lockdown. If students are trying to take their test and run into those kind of problems. Let's see. So I want to go back to one of my slides here that talked about right here. The final exams, which we've been talking about, final exams or appropriate culminating activities during exam week. So what we are saying here, what the guidelines are saying here is you could give an exam a multiple choice, true, false exam, but you could also do some type of activity that kind of rounds out your course. And so in doing that and saying that, we wanted to talk a little bit about some alternative strategies for final projects. And now's a really good time to start thinking about some of these things because some of them take a little bit of planning and a little bit of thought on your part, but it might save you some time and frustration from students if you at least give the option to do some of these things. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is something that's kind of new and it's kind of a buzzword now, education. It's called choice boards. And I have an example here of a choice board. This is pretty much a chart. This one is just happens to be about Spanish, maybe in an elementary Spanish class or something like that, where the student gets to pick something that they produce, some kind of product that they produce that allows you to see that they've mastered the material in the course. And maybe they don't just have to choose one, maybe they have to choose 2 or 3 out of all of these choices. If you would like to know more about choice boards, or if you want to just talk to somebody about maybe fleshing out some ideas about using choice boards, please reach out to us here at COOL. We can certainly help you do that. I'm an instructional designer here in the department. I've done lots of different types of alternative assignments for faculty in all disciplines. So if you have some ideas about maybe how you might want to put this together, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to put something together with you. Also, Susan Rock, who is the director of the Faculty Enhancement Center, she can help you come up with some type of choice board or some kind of assignment, alternative assignment for your final exam. And Mariko Izumi, who is the director of QEP, can help you talk something like this out. This is one example of a choice board. You're just essentially giving students a choice in different types of assessments, what they might turn into you. All of these could be Dropbox items or what we call assignment submission folders. And so you could just ask students to put this in an assignment Dropbox. Another type of choice board would be something like this. This could be an assignment submission folder where you could still ask the student to, you could set up a multiple choice portion of your exam. Since 1865. And so what the student would do is just choose 4 of these topics to write 4 short answer paragraphs. And students really like doing things like this because they are able to choose something that they know a lot about. They're going to be able to give you a lot of good information about this. And you can make the topics broad so that you can feel good about covering a large amount of material in a course. It's perfectly fine to open something like this up on the first day of the testing window on May 11th and have it due on the 14th. Obviously, yes, the student will go and probably use the internet to look for information or even use an open book, but that's fine because as you can see here in the instructions, there are specific details. Uh-oh, my line went over that. I'll erase that. There are specific details as far as what you want from these paragraphs. You want a topic sentence, okay? You want specific details to support and explain the topic, okay? So that is some criteria you can put in for each of these short answer questions. You can even create a rubric, and if you're not sure about how to create a rubric or have that rubric appear in Cougar View, so you can just go in and edit the rubric for each assignment that you're grading, reach out to us here at COOL. We can help you set that up. Also, Susan Rock can also help you with those kind of tasks. But this is a good way to allow the student to show you what they know and for you to feel good about how they master the material. Another idea is infographics. This is going to allow the student to visually show you what they know about a topic or even several topics. I chose chemistry this time because it just really works for any discipline. I also have here a couple of infographic tools. These are all free and they're easy to set up and produce really nice, pretty infographics. And so essentially what you would do is give the student some kind of topic or allow them to choose their topic and maybe put in some different criteria, parameters of different things that you want listed out, similar to what you would do if you were asking them to write a research paper. You'd give them some mechanics, like you wanted 12-point font and so many pages, and you're going to want them to cover certain things in their research paper. You pretty much do the same thing here for this infographic, but you would allow the student to go and gather up the data and then be able to put it in something visual like what you see here. This is really easy to do. And again, if you need instructions on how to write this up so that students know what is expected of them, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you with this. Another idea for an alternative assessment is, that's a horrible picture of me, by the way. I did not even realize that. Okay, a professional presentation. This is actually something that I did for one of my own classes last summer, where I had to do a TED Talk. And so I did it in Camtasia, but a lot of students don't have that. But there are some other tools that you can use to do some type of presentation. It was a 10-minute talk on a topic. The course that I was taking was diversity in education, and so actually with the help of my accessibility specialist, I did my talk on accessibility in online courses, and so got an A too. Thank you, Anne. So I just did a professional presentation, but it was completely asynchronous. So if you're thinking about doing something like this, please reach out to us. It really does not have to be as difficult as it may sound. There are some really easy tools out there that will allow students to do a professional presentation. You could even do something like PowerPoint and do some voiceovers, have the students do voiceovers on PowerPoint. But at the end of the day, they are showing you what they know about a certain topic or about a collection of topics, since it's kind of a culminating activity. So think about something like that. Another idea is have the student put together some type of e-portfolio. And this can be easily done. I want to share my desktop real quick because there's a really great tool. It's called Padlet. There it is. And Padlet is like a web space. And what you see here, you see one of my old Padlets. The really cool thing about this, it's free. It's free with an email setup. It's very easy to use. And the background that you see here, I mean, they have tons of backgrounds. You can kind of customize this to your own taste. But the really cool thing about this tool is you're able to post, if you will, Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoint slides, videos. If you notice right here, this is actually a little YouTube video that I posted that I want people to see on my Padlet page. You can move these guys around. You can put in charts. And so what I'm thinking here is how about some kind of overarching course objective and ask students to maybe using your different module objectives or chapter objectives, give you little pieces of information to make some type of portfolio. And the really cool thing about this is your Padlet is a URL right? So all they would have to do is you just set up a Dropbox or assignment submission folder and ask students to submit the URL to you, and you could go in and look at people's ePortfolio. Or you could make this a discussion question and let people post to the discussion board, and then make comments on other folks' portfolios if you wanted to. So there are a lot of ideas that are out there for, I'm trying to get back to my slides. Apparently can't talk and get slides up at the same time. So there are a lot of different ideas for alternative assessments. And I think going forward, as we approach final exams, it's just important to know that, you know, there are many ways to skin a cat. There are many ways for a student to show you that they mastered the materials. Yes, a test is just fine, and I hope I showed you how secure it can be in Cougar View. But if you want to give students a choice in how they show you what they know, there are certainly different ways for you to incorporate alternative assignment. If you're not sure about different tools to use or what instructions to write, as I mentioned before, please reach out to me at Cool or Susan Rock is also, she absolutely gave me permission to use her and Mariko. They're more than happy to help you come up with ideas or write out instructions. Susan Rock, Mariko, or myself, and any of us are willing and want to help. Are there any questions? I see we have some more folks. Dr. Carroll, you've joined us, or Dr. Z?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you have any questions or comments or anything?
Yes.
I would
Where
like
is
to
the
ask you.
studio?
Oh, sorry.
Dr. Z?
I think we were overlapping for a moment. So I think I'm good at this time with setting up responders monitor. So I came up with this. See, this giving student exception if they cannot log in a way that if I'm requiring monitor and then they say the camera doesn't work or whatever else, and then I give them exception. I don't think that's fair to all other students because anybody can claim that. Am I missing something there? Because if I'm allowing one student to take the test without monitor, I honestly think I should then allow all of them to do the same. Do you agree, or am I missing something there?
Well, I mean, the reason that you can exclude some students from using monitor is because maybe they're on a device that where monitor doesn't work, and we do have students that are trying to work courses from their phones, or from an iPad or from some type of tablet.
Right. So what I'm planning to do, I mean, exactly to solve that problem, there are 4 students in my class who told me that either have Chromebook or iPad or their camera doesn't work. So what I requested them to do is I'll set up 2 exams. One will be a regular which is basically 90% of the students who have the laptop and camera and all of that. And then I'll set a copy of that exam, which will not require responders, and I'll protect it with password. So these other students, and I emailed them that separately, will call me on Zoom call with their phone, and then I'll give them the password to go to that exam. And so that exam will require no responders at all, but there will be their phone will be positioned so I see their workspace and like their screen, their workspace. And because this is physics exam, so they will be working on their exams on the piece of paper. They have to do a lot of algebra drawings of the ray diagrams, and this has to be done, by hand. So they'll have an option to print this out if they want to, and then before they exit, I'll put as the last question. I don't know what triggered that idea while you guys were talking, but one important thing is they will have to show me on the camera what they did before they close the session, because what they upload after that will have to correspond to what was visible in the monitor session. And while you guys were talking, it occurred to me I can actually make that a question, so nobody can forget. I'll make that the last question in the test. So I think this will work, except I think it's set up and it's in a good shape, but always, something happen. The internet connection may drop. Let's take that for example. Let's say it just drops. So what are the backup options for that type of situation?
It sounds like, are you intending to do this in real time? Take this exam
Yes.
in real time?
Yes.
Because the guidelines say that if I'm not mistaken, somebody moved my slides for me, but I was thinking that it was supposed to be an asynchronous.
That's for the finals. And finals, I'll come up with something alternative. That's for the finals, but not now.
Oh, just for a regular quiz.
Well, the regular, test.
Exam.
Yeah, I have 5 tests. One of them is final, and so final will be asynchronous. And actually, I appreciate your inputs on alternative exams. I thought of something for that too during the session, so it was really valuable. But let's say right now it is synchronous, so after students exit the responders, they will upload the scan of the workout. Now they will give me the answers in very short answers that are their final results. That can be like 23 amps. They will put that into their boxes. But if it's correct, then everything is good. But if it's wrong, I can go back to their upload and see if they did a good work, and if they make some small mistake, I can still give them a lot of points. That's what the purpose of uploading is there for. But they have to exit responders to upload this thing. So they'll show me, on the screen what they have before they upload, so they don't submit something completely different later on. But again, I think I have it set up in a pretty tight way with all of these options covered. But if something really just happens, storm, internet goes out.
Right. Yeah.
And then a student can say, okay, I was dropped in the middle of my exam, but at this time, is my only option to set up another exam, or there's something else that I can do as a plan C?
I think I know what you're asking is, so if a student is in the middle of taking an exam and they lose connectivity, how do you handle that?
Exactly. So for a legit reason, it's all just goes down in flames. And
yes, you can reset an exam. You can reset a quiz in CougarView.
Well, so in physics, all of these problems have a lot of. They're basically on the web. You can find solutions to just about anything, and you also have the paid services for people who will do them for you. All that I'm trying to achieve here is that another person does not do that for them, and it's kind of, so how to distinguish if I just reset it, because they can print it out in the meanwhile, they can send it to somebody, get it back, I reset it, and they just put up the answers. So I would have to basically create another exam, and I was wondering if there's anything else that can be done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. Because even if I do set it, even if I do create another one, hopefully it'll not happen again. But you guys have any input on that? Hopefully this will not happen. I'm just asking as a possibility, because I wouldn't be surprised if it happened before, if to users who were using responders.
Something I can say about Respondus Monitor and Respondus Lockdown Browser is it's not 100% foolproof. Just like any other proctoring service, it's not always 100% foolproof. Things do happen. So the best option I can give you for if something like that happens is how we normally handle it is, if a student is in the middle of taking an exam and their system crashes, but the clock keeps ticking, then depending on whether or not the professor authorizes it, we at the Center of Online Learning can add time to their exam so that they can have their full allotted time to take the exam. But regarding the other question about creating a brand new exam for each time, I would say that's completely up to you how you want to handle that. We can support.
I want to do that. Lots of work. I would want. That's why I'm asking if there's any better solution. Or yeah, just extending the time. By the way, can I extend the time, or you guys have to do that on your?
Oh
on your
no, you definitely can extend the time. Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
It would basically be doing a special access and adding and letting them have additional time. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
I can do that. That's not the problem. Okay, well, yeah, it's a hard question. I understand. There's no simple solution. So I hope everything goes well. This is the first time I'm doing it, so I'm just trying to anticipate.
Well, you know what? Sometimes that's how we have to work. You know, we try something, throw it out there, see if it works. If it does, we do it again. If it doesn't, we go back to the drawing board and try to figure out something else. So I apologize for my dogs barking, but squirrels are big business around here. So when we see one outside, we have to react to that.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, I appreciate, and I will contact you back, Kim, on this alternative exams. I think what I'll do because the finals have to be asynchronous.
Yes.
I might assign that they actually create videos of Khan Academy type videos of them solving the problem and explaining how it's being solved. Something like that may serve the purpose well. But I'll contact back. I'll contact you back on that.
Yes, let's toss around some ideas.
Good deal.
Thank you. Dr. Carroll, did you have any questions?
I got answered in the chat. Thank you.
Okay. Answered in the chat. Okay. Well,
this is helpful. This is the last piece, I feel like, of the how do I transition to.
Yeah.
Because I relied on proctoring to give me that sense of security, and now that that's been withdrawn, I have found a free proctoring service. So I'm gonna see. Hopefully, it doesn't crash and burn. That's available and can be used, but we'll see.
Which service is that, Dr. Carroll?
The way I had to get it was I had to sit through a session with I felt like a salesperson, even though it's really interesting why it's spending so much personal time on me when I'm just going to use it for a free service. And I think it's because that's how they usually operate, a very high touch point experience, and then that way it's a good experience and money for it, typically.
You're cutting off. Can you put the link to the URL in the chat or something?
Dr. Carroll, that's very interesting.
So, but
we were actually meeting with Top Hat to discuss their services. Mm-hmm.
But as it shows on USDA is that they may be overwhelmed. So this. So I guess I retract it and have it in just Cougar View as a backup, or I don't know. For it real quick.
Yeah, Hiram, like Raquel was mentioning, we have been looking at them just very recently, learn more about their services, especially for going forward. So, if you have more you can share with us about your feelings on it, we'd love to hear more from what you've seen so far. So, maybe email Raquel to let her know more. Maybe we can talk to you about it more. That'd be great.
So I'm still confused why I had to sit through a demo for a well-polished product that's intuitive. or they could have made one video and it would have answered my question.
They offer a number of different services, and so I think they're wanting to show them all off as opposed to just the proctoring or just certain things. So I think that's part of it. We're learning about it ourselves right now, like I said. So
Here's a link to, oh, that link didn't copy. That's weird.
Yeah, I think it did.
Oh, it did copy.
yeah,
Collaborate Ultra. Oh, yep.
yeah, it's there.
I tried to put in HTTPS at, and it got that for me. Oh, because anyway. That's a link I got in an email saying, hey, this is free, and here's this offer. I signed up and didn't hear anything. I signed up again, and so, but it's not a sign up and then you can do it tomorrow. In one email, they said, hey, sign up for having free proctoring for like next week or 10 days out. I think anticipating that there was going to be a huge surge, a huge response. But I don't know.
Yes,
They had a way
they
to-
actually just went live with their proctoring solution. They've teamed up with another company called Proctorio to be able to offer proctoring. But they did mention that there were some faculty members at CSU that had begun using proctoring or using Top Hat. So if you don't mind, I would love to get your feedback on their service whenever you have a moment.
Sure. This was intended for a replacement for proctoring for my online, my originally online class. And so it'll be the final. So it's after the semester, and so that'll be nice when things come.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you so much.
I do have a question. So I was controlling the slides, and so that's the same thing as any student can control the whiteboard.
I think it's because you're listed as a presenter.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
yeah.
I think when we
So the link that was sent out defaulted to having me as a presenter then instead of just a participant.
I think it's the way we have this particular Collaborate session set up. You don't have to, you can certainly select it. People who enter are participants and not presenters. I think this is just the way we have this one set up.
Yeah, as I'm going back into it right now, I'm looking at, yeah, we have guest role as presenter, so you may want to just be aware of that or change that back next time. So.
And I think you can, there's also a setting that allows students to write on the whiteboard and doesn't allow students to write on the whiteboard, so.
Yes.
But thank you for advancing my slide stuff, Carol.
I have found that Collaborate Ultra has been overwhelmed for my Tuesday, Thursday afternoon class and was having poor audio and video. So I've unfortunately had to move away from it. I switched to Google Meet and my whole class transitioned and everyone came in and said, this is a much, much better quality. So it wasn't my internet connection because it was 1 minute apart. But I miss all the features that Collaborate Ultra provides, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's something, Hiram. We've been it's been an interesting process for different people finding out, depending upon their bandwidth, what works well for them. My audio seems to have been doing better here, at least this time of the day, in Blackboard Collaborate, whereas in Zoom, our team can tell you my audio has not come through very well, at least as far as my microphone or something. So don't know what it is there. Some things seem to be working better for other people. So find what works best for you. You know, that's. So, is Dr. Z still in here? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Hiram. Go ahead.
I was going to say thank you. This was helpful.
Good. I'm glad you found it useful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, guys.
Hi everyone. Since I arrived late, I wonder if we can have access to those slides somehow.
This slide presentation that I have here?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. I can send it to you. All I did, Rania, was copied the guidelines from an email that we had sent. But yeah, I can give you the PowerPoint, sure.
That would help. Thank you.
Sure.
Ranya's tardy and she's trying to make up for it.
I was in another meeting. I have my excuse.
If I could, Dr. Z, I wanted to mention you had said about for a possible final. I've been thinking about something like that for you, based on what you were describing. It's an excellent way of doing this to have them, to have your students. You know, maybe you send them the problem and they do a video or they come up with it. Either way, but having them demonstrate their ability to explain it, where they become the teacher, is an excellent way to be able to assess. That's showing that they understand it.
Yeah, as you guys were speaking today, I thought that would be excellent because to do that, to present that, you really have to nail it. And so I'll create a pool of problems and distribute them. And actually, it will be great because what they do will be a pool of solved problems for the next semester students as well.
Excellent. Yeah.
So, yeah, I will have to get in touch in terms of the technology, how they upload this in some favorable way. And if they don't want to be on the camera, which they don't have to be, they can just record the screen. But they will need some kind of a screen capturing tool. They may not have Camtasia. Most of them probably don't. So I'll get back in touch with those technical details. We'll sort it out.
Sure. Yeah, and there's a number of free tools out there for that, so that, especially depending upon how long you're wanting them to be doing it for, they can be able to, just submit the link to you once they've created the video, and it's a great way of doing that. So.
Yeah.
Or
thank you.
you can have them do several videos and then put it in Padlet, and then they just submit to you a URL. You don't have to worry about how long the video is or how the file is, because they're just giving you a URL. You go out somewhere else to look at their work.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking about that as you were presenting the Padlet. Eventually I would want those videos organized by topic. So thinking ahead of time in those terms as well, I'll come up with some way that will hopefully do half of the job for me, so I don't have to rearrange and reorganize everything after that. But we can talk about that. This is a great start.
Yeah, let's talk.
Yeah. You mean now?
Huh?
Did you want to continue the discussion now?
No,
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we'll pick up. Yes, sure. Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Okay. Well, I don't know if we have Dr. Z. You're our last participant here. So, are there any other questions?
The last Mohican. I'm good. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you all.
All right. Well, thank you for coming. And I guess I will turn off the recording now.